Good morning, everybody, and good morning in internet world out there. I'm Paul Day. This is Unity of Springfield in Springfield, Missouri. It's August 1st, 2021, and today I'm going to be giving a talk on a world beyond. It's a discussion of heaven. It's based on a book by Ruth Montgomery called A World Beyond. So, first of all, let's go ahead and just get centered this morning. Good morning, Susan, and good morning to everybody here. I know it takes a little bit of time for us to all get settled in, so I'm just kind of waiting here for a second. Okay, if you could, just sit back in your chair and to know that you are here now. And close your eyes if you would. And go within that almighty spirit that we are such a part of, that almighty spirit that guides us, gives us direction in the way that we want to show up, the way we want to be, the way we want to act, the way we want to think and do, the goodness that is there. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And may we come together this morning and just feel that goodness in each other. Feel that God. And with that, so be it. Amen. Well, thanks for showing up here this morning. I know we still have, I think it's called a pandemic or something like that going on here. And I appreciate you wearing your mask. I really do. I tell you what, I wear it everywhere I go. You know, not on the outdoors maybe so much, but everywhere I go indoors I do now too. And I think that's something that we need to be more conscious of. Sue is in Florida. She is at a family reunion for the week, and they've taken all the kids, and they're going to be having some fun down at Universal Studios and Disney World, and so I really am looking forward to some good stories from that. It's 2 years in the making. They were going to do it last year, and then again we had that pandemic hit, and they closed it down. And then of course things looked like they were going to be all rosy earlier on, and so they went ahead and rescheduled it for this year. And of course we have things going on again, so I know they're going to be practicing safety there too. So some of you are out of the room. I'm going to be talking about the world beyond. It's a discussion on heaven. It's based on a book by Ruth Montgomery called A World Beyond. How many of you have heard of Ruth Montgomery before? 3 of you. Okay, good. I happened to pick up this book when we had our Unity yard sale in June. And the yard sale was all over, and I come in and I help take things down, and everything that's left over is going to go to, I think it was, what is that? The red racks. And so we're just giving things away. And whoever it was that was in charge of the sale, I just said, if I see anything that I want to keep, do you mind if I just take it? And she said, yes, of course. And this is one of those books that it just drew me to it, and I immediately read it and just loved it. Now, when I was a kid, and I mean literally when I was in junior high school, I read a book by Ruth Montgomery, and it was a book on the life of Jean Dixon, if anybody had heard of Jean Dixon before. She was a medium back then, and I have no idea. I guess I was interested in that kind of thing back when I was a kid, so it carries on to today. But this book is, first of all, Ruth Montgomery was a Washington Post reporter. She was a correspondent. She was a writer, very, very gifted. She had met many presidents. I'll get to that in the introduction here. But so I wanted, I have to hold this up because my glasses, I can't see it down here without my glasses. I have to hold it up here with these glasses. I'm basing this discussion on this book by Ruth Montgomery. So this book was published in 1971, and that was 50 years ago. Now, Ruth Montgomery died 20 years ago. She did a series of books on automatic writing. Have anybody heard of automatic writing before? Kind of know what it is? Everybody. Well, that's great. So I don't have to explain that one. She called it as mysterious as the cycle of birth and death, and considerably more difficult to prove. Her daytime job was, of course, as I said, the Washington Post writer. Ruth Montgomery wrote of automatic writing, "I do not claim to know the answer. I can only attest that the vivid descriptions of afterlife imparted through this book are not products of my imagination or conscious knowledge, and that in those instances where assertions are provable, they were totally unknown to me before they came through my typewriter." Has anybody ever heard the word typewriter before? I think we're all of that age, but I tell you what, it's so funny. When I was doing my business for the last 25 years, and when I first started it, there were actually a lot of professors that were still using typewriters. And about half of them had computers and half were using typewriters. By the time I finished a course, I didn't even see a typewriter anymore. So it's kind of foreign to, read through a book and hear that word even. So the communication that Ruth had was through three persons. The most prominent was a close friend of hers who had just passed that year, and his name was Arthur Ford. Now, most of this material is coming through him, and I'm going to give you a little description on him in just a second. Before she wrote this book, she had abandoned automatic writing. She was just working at her job at the Washington Post, and she felt she had proven to herself that it was possible to communicate with those who had passed, and she did not wish to become a medium. That was not her calling. But one day, a former deceased friend named Lily came to her and stated, and I want to read to you this from the book, "Ruth, this is Lily and the group. Arthur Ford is here." Now, remember, he had just passed away, "and wants you to know that he is as young as the merry month of May. He feels great and does not want you to grieve. He is so glad to be here and more delighted than you will ever know, for he has secretly yearned to make this trip exploration and finds it much more beautiful than he had imagined or glimpsed while in trance. He's on top of the world, a ball of fire. He's so glad to be rid of the worn-out body which caused him so much pain." Arthur became interested in a book she was working on at the time, and of course Ruth Montgomery wrote many books. And he wanted to present a totally accurate picture of conditions in the plane where he now found himself, and so he was encouraging her to work with him to write this book, which we have here. So I'm going to, I've got some handouts I want to have, maybe you can just pass them down. Appreciate that. This is not in the handout right here, but it will be fairly certain. And what I want to do is I want to go through some things that Arthur Ford said in the book, and there are 10 short paragraphs or 10 things that Arthur Ford had said, and you can read through those as I'm going through them later on too. In the meantime, I'm going to describe about Arthur Ford. He used to be America's best known medium. Now, I don't know that I had even heard of him, but he, as I said, he died in 1971. He was a clergyman who joined Martin Luther King on the first march in Washington. Arthur took the lead from others who were mystics, including John Wesley, Martin Luther, Emanuel Swedenborg, who is also part of the whole New Thought movement, Dwight Moody, and the Catholic saints. He studied under Swami Yogananda, and I don't know if any of you have ever read Swami Yogananda's book. You know, it's a phenomenal book, who was lecturing in the United States at the time. In 1924, he started envisioning messages from a guy named Fletcher, who was a friend of his who had passed in World War I. Soon, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who was the guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes, persuaded him to choose mediumship over the clergy. In 1928, Ford broke the Houdini Code. Now, nobody had ever broken the code then, and I don't think anybody's broken the code since, but he was able to actually broke the Houdini Code. And Houdini's wife, Houdini had died, before that, but Houdini's wife claimed, yes, he did break it. Ford's work were repeatedly tested by some of the best-known personalities of the time. Professor William McDougall, who's the professor at Harvard, an English physicist, Sir Oliver Lodge, the author Upton Sinclair, Jack London, and the World Secretary of the Young Men's Christian Association, as well as many other writers, artists, senators, congressmen, and of course, he was also very close with many White House intimates and European nobility. So this is supposed to be a discussion, so I am inviting all of you to participate in this. So let's get started. The first one, Arthur states off by saying, we are not all seeing, all knowing on this side, and many things are unknown to us on the physical plane unless they penetrate the intelligence of one with whom we work closely, such as yourself. Let's start with the premise that each person is a continuing entity, and I put in parentheses there, reincarnation. Now, reincarnation, we usually think of it as just one lifetime to the next, but here Arthur is saying, he didn't use the word reincarnation, I did, a continuing entity. I thought that was interesting. We've always been and we always will be through all eternity. No beginning and no ending, despite what some of the moralists say about our life. Beginning with physical birth as a baby and ending with Judgment Day. There's never been a time when we were not, and we will always be, and we always will be, even in constantly changing forms and stages, for we are as much God as God is a part of us. Now, this will startle some, but not others. What an expansive thought, for if each of us is God, then taken together, we are God. And since it takes all of us to make a complete God, we know that another person is as necessary to us and to the common welfare as we ourselves. Therefore, it behooves each of us to concern ourselves mightily with others, for they are as necessary to us as our own arms, legs, eyes, and ears. Each of us is incomplete without the totality of humanity, both living and dead. It is the totality that makes us the whole of the universal spirit, which we are wont to call God. It is nearer to fulfilling Christ's commandments, love one another, and the kingdom of God is within, than all the stuffy preaching about a God who sits on a throne to quickly judge. Now, I'm wanting to open this up a little bit here. Most religions, Christian religions, most denominations would have a big problem with what Arthur Ford just said here. Go ahead, LB. He said that it was that we are continuing in entities. There's no beginning and there's no ending. Okay. He says no beginning and no ending, despite what some of the moralists say about our life, beginning with the physical birth as a baby and ending with Judgment Day. He's saying that's not true. He's saying we've always been, we always will be. He's saying that other religions are saying it begins with birth and ends at Judgment Day. And he's saying, whoop, throw that out the door. Yeah, just the opposite. Got it. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
In the Bible, if you really look at it closely, in particular in the Old Testament, you understand that all of them assume that reincarnation is the truth.
That's what I've always thought too, yeah. And you can find certain verses that really certainly imply that.
In the New Testament, that one where Jesus asks, "Who do they say that I am?" Moses said,
Yes, that's true.
and that truly reflects.
Thanks, Pat. And that's really good. That's what I wanted to get people's feelings on reincarnation. Of course, I think most of us in Unity who are, I would call, more open-minded, and we do have that translation of the Bible that's very different than many other people translate the Bible. But I guess I'm kind of speaking to the choir, aren't I? What's your thought about eternity? I mean, always been, always will be. We think of it, I know in Unity we think of God as always has been and always will be, but what's your thoughts about what Arthur Ford said here, where we are God, and we always have been and we always will be? Does that resonate with you? Does that, go ahead, Julie, let's. I'm sorry, I can't quite. Yeah, it just keeps changing. I agree. That's absolutely. Two should be together, shouldn't they? They should merge. And I think in time, aren't we getting closer and closer and closer? And we're finding out that, Einstein was a good example of that, where he claimed that same statement also, I believe. Go ahead, Elby. Yeah. 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 Thanks, LB. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on. We do have a few things to cover here. Number 2 on your paper. What is life like here in this stage? Time, of course, is different. There's no such thing as clock time here, for we are able to eliminate time as well as space, since we're able to will ourselves to be anywhere at any moment of Earth time, and are able to look ahead so far into what you call the future that this also transcends the earthly idea of time. For things are planned ahead. Make no mistake, if earthlings realized how much of it is planned ahead, they would not struggle so strongly to avert certain catastrophes as they view them, because why worry so much when it's all laid out in front of you anyway? Just accept it as it comes, remembering always to do the very best that you can to lead productive, helpful lives, and let the future come to you unfeared. For whether it's part of the divine plan for you or your own mission, which you agreed to accomplish when you return to physical form, it's there. So what is fear? Simply lack of faith in the plan. Be relaxed, available, willing to take what comes, and do the best that you can. Before we get going on that, Dee, I wanted to give you a sheet here. Okay. I'll try to. Sometimes the questions get a little lengthy. Go ahead, Les.
In that second point, I think what is being introduced is a concept of predestination.
Right.
And I would think that there are a lot of people that would have arguments against that.
Absolutely. And Les was saying that in that second, well, in the paragraph there, he was mentioning that predestination, a lot of people have a problem with that, including me. I have a little bit of a problem with that too. Now, do I believe that some things might be, that we have things that might come up? I don't know how I quite feel about this. Obviously, it's predestination versus free will, right? And we are all God. So in my way of thinking, I think that yes, we can change destiny. However, at the same time, I think what he's saying is, don't worry so much. Go about your life. Do we have control over, the world wars, and do we have control over things that are going to happen in the big plan? Well, I don't know. Maybe those things are going to happen anyway, but it's how we respond to them. Obviously, free will is for us as a soul to be able to change whatever we have control over, right? But I do have a problem with that on predestination too, and I think many of us probably do too. Go ahead, Elby. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And of course I can't say what Elby said, so that's why I took the microphone off there. Anybody else on that? What I was thinking when you were saying that, Elby, is, take the pandemic, for instance. Of course, if we can look at it that, yes, we do have free will, and yet at the same time, our free will is not going to change the fact that the pandemic was going to come, probably. That's how I kind of read this paragraph, maybe. I don't know, maybe you have a little bit different view of that, but that's kind of how I pictured it, anyway. Anything else on free will or on time? I mean, time is that always, I just get so blessed out when I think about time and eternity. Any other comments on that? Go ahead, Pat.
Created time in this lifetime so that we can organize our life a little better. There have been other times in previous eras that would be strange to us, just like there are other numbering systems that would be strange to us. Each era organizes itself in whatever way it can to accomplish what it needs to accomplish, and time is one of those things, as is the numbering system and all our financial system and everything like that. It's all created, but it in fact, ours seems to be changing as it is now with the Bitcoin getting so big. I don't know where that's going to end. Exactly. I don't know what that big picture is. It would be nice to be able to see it. Yeah. But at the same time, we are responsible for our time, and we also have the free will to loosen it a little bit, like when we retire. Yeah. We can not take it as seriously and not set the alarm so early and not, do all of those things, but we create all of that to be able to live an ordered life, we think.
And you're right. And we came into this world, didn't we, with our parents and every generation before us, believing in that definition of what we call time. And when you think about it, well, we kind of did invent the clock, and segment it. Of course, the world goes around the sun, and we do have what we call a year. But that's still man-made or woman-made.
Well, time gives us a feeling of sequence, and on the three-dimensional plane, we have a sequence. Now, what Dispenza was saying was in the quantum field, there is no time because it's all-encompassing, so there's no set sequence. And he says that the quantum field is the vibration beyond the speed of light. And so you've got that sphere. But in the three-dimensional world, if you don't have time, you don't have sequence, you don't have events.
Thank you, Elby. Let's go ahead and move along. We're on number 3. Death is no more than the passage through a beckoning door. It is so brief, so transitory as scarcely to be noted, for it is what lies beyond the door that counts. The body, let's say, is tired and weakened. The soul has slipped off through the opening door. That should be some instead of so. Some go gladly, some reluctantly, but all in answer to the universal urge for peace and tranquility. The pain ceased, the spirit departed, and here I was amid such beauty as you cannot dream. The here was not different from the there, except that with no need for physical comforts, only the beauty of the world remained. There is work here, but only that which is purposeful, necessary, and congenial. No one is forced to work at any task. He himself chooses what to do, and if it helps with his spiritual growth, that is enough to make the angels sing, as the preachers, I forgot to put an S there, say. But he will never be compelled to grow or develop. There are no teachers on this side to force Johnny to learn to read or spell unless Johnny wants to grow and develop. Therefore, we need to be stronger here than there. Here, we're left to our own devices, and the lazy ones loaf by the wayside without ever putting their feet upon the path and searching for the way. We are different each time we come through the open door again. And again, I think that's referring to reincarnation. We have formed new patterns of thought and new ideas about what to expect. And since thoughts are definitely things, we are the co-creators with God of what we find ourselves here. Ruth, we want you to wake up the people there to the importance of this towering truth. They, with their thoughts, are not only creating the pattern of their future lives, but their own heaven or hell. Any thoughts on that? Is that something we all agree about? I thought it was kind of interesting that, we kind of have work to do when we're in, quote, heaven. I think he's saying as a soul. That's my interpretation. He's saying that we have work to do here on earth, right? He's saying that there's not a whole lot of difference between what we're doing here and what's going to be happening there. Okay, that we always are, the goal is to make progress. The goal is that exploration, that learning, that coming closer and closer and closer to God realization. That's how I interpret it. And he's saying those who don't want to do the work, he calls them the lazy ones, they're going to, do whatever they want to do, because no one's forcing you to do anything, but that those who want that spiritual growth, this is a great place to really make progress. What does a soul look like? That's a good question. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. And I think in your handout, when we keep going on, I think that question's going to be answered too. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's a good word that you use there is energy. That's how I would, because everything is energy, right? And when we lose our physical bodies, obviously, we do not believe that we die. We believe that we go on through that energy, and that energy that we call a soul. Anything else? Are we good? Go ahead, Les. good point, and I hope you could pick up on that here. I can't repeat everything that Les said, but I do agree with you on that too. And of course, none of us absolutely know for sure, do we? I mean, now there are those who supposedly do pass away and then come back to life, and I love those stories of what we call the NDEs, the near-death experience. I love hearing about what other people experience, and I had not myself personally, but I had a friend who did pass, came back, and was able to quote see other people that she said were here. She did a reading on me right after my father had died. And she was able to tell me something that absolutely no one else knew about my father that I knew. This woman knows what she's saying. And so it's really hard for me to, believe that we just go away, we disappear into the dark. At the same time, I hear what you're saying too. And I think, to me, what Les was saying there, this is my interpretation, that we get to a point where we have made that spiritual progress, and we do melt into that cosmic energy. That's how I see it. But again, we're just basing this on the book here and what someone else thinks, what Arthur Ford is saying, and what's real and what's not real. Well, we're going to find out, I guess, at some point. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think we're on 4, aren't we? Okay, progression. That is the key to happiness, here as well as there. And what an exciting place this is for those of us who are eager to learn and to grow. We have sky and flowers, trees, sunsets more vivid than you can comprehend. For everything in this world and in yours is a pattern of thought. Here we communicate and work and grow and thrive only through thought. And since we are without interference from physical minds, which are mere mechanical machines, our thoughts instantaneously react to whatever we wish to project. We instantly see another person or soul of whom we think. We are constantly projecting thought patterns of our own so that wherever we wish to be, we are. Thoughts are things. And into thoughts we are able to put whatever we choose to see, just as you in physical bodies are able to make your lives sweeter or uglier by what you think. Think evil and evil comes. Think goodness and you see only goodness in those about you. Think love and you are surrounded by love. Think hate and the world is a loathsome place filled with ogres and baneful voices. What a concept, huh? And I think a lot of us do study, that, and we do believe that we can choose where we put our mind, right? We can think goodness. We can think thoughts of God. But I know many of you know people that think just the opposite, don't they? And what are their lives like? And it's hard to be around those people a lot of times. And yet, oftentimes, we're forced to be around those people, and we just have to, hold our balance or walk away or whatever it is. But we choose the heaven or the hell. And he's saying, actually, that continues on. That continues on. And, maybe that's what hell is, a soul creating their own hell. I don't know. Any thoughts? I want to open that up. Anything, are you getting any comments online?
Mary was asking, wait, we have to do stuff after, and if we don't, there are souls who are going to call us lazy?
Call. What was the last word you said?
I said we have to do stuff after, and if we don't, there are souls who are going to call us lazy.
Yes, tell her yes. Elvie. Yeah.
There was an island where when Ruth was going to heaven or whatever, there was an island that was hell. And what it was created by the people's thoughts. It's what they expected to get.
Yeah.
And so,
Elby, thanks. And I'll tell you what, even in my own life, I can tell you, whoo, there's been some times where I feel like I've created my own hell, I'll tell you, and it's been work to get out of that. And then there's been times that have just been pure heaven. And, I try and tend to want to go that direction. But you're absolutely right. It's, and again, he's going to be touching on this in some of these paragraphs that we're going to be reading. This isn't on your paper. I'm going to read just a couple short paragraphs. Ford stated that he knew what to expect when he passed because he had glimpses of people on this side and knew they were as much with us on the earth as his friends were. Now remember, he was a medium, okay, so that's why he's saying that. They were eager to assist and give a rousing welcome. When his time was coming, he recognized this place where he had often been between previous lives. He had become more contemplative and prepared his subconscious mind for the freedom when it would know the world of free spirit. As Ford reached the final heart seizure when he died, he keenly sensed that his time was at hand. He longed for and then welcomed the release from the physical restraints. He stepped away from the physical body as easily into the astral body as he had consciously always worn it. Okay, and number 5. Arthur stated, life on this side is not too different from that on our plane, for we are here, not off in some other world. I am as much with you at this moment as ever I was when sitting in your living room in Washington. He's talking to Ruth and their lives together in Washington, except that we now communicate more effectively. We are here. That is the first thing to emphasize. We are as much of the earth as you are, except that because we have shed the physical bodies, we are not tied to the basic laws which operate for you and provide impediments to movement. We are spirit and can go through inanimate objects, or animate for that matter. They exist only as thought forms, not since we see them not so much as forms as ideas. They are no hindrance to us. We are free as the wind to go wherever we choose at any given moment, and that's not bus, it's but. This is not to say that we rush about willy-nilly, for we soon develop purpose here. Growth is what counts here, as well as there. And we do not grow so long as we transport ourselves aimlessly hither and yon. Our purpose is the same as there, to do that which God wishes for each of us. No two of us are alike, and our missions down through the ages have varied as much as the earthly personalities with which we drape our spirit. Here, we do not actually see God, but we are so overwhelmingly aware of his beneficent presence that none on this side who has experienced the slightest bit of development will be unaware of his constant presence. We are his, and he is ours. There's no separation from him, for we are of him. And Ruth asked, who or what is God? Do you know more about him now than when you were in the flesh? And Arthur replied, much more. God is the core of the universe from which all else flows forth. He is truth and energy. He's matter and spirit and all things of heaven and earth. He is eternity itself, wise and all-knowing, but whether we are aware of it or not, he is also the essence of our beings, without which nothing would exist. Wow, he said a lot there, didn't he? Agree, disagree? Any thoughts? Okay, I didn't pick up on the separation.
Well, he's saying he's the core, but he permeates everything, and I don't know.
Oh, you're talking about God now, right? Okay. I don't think I could, or anybody else could, get up in front of an audience and describe God. I think it's way too beyond what I could ever, tend to describe. And how would we know anyway? I didn't pick up that I think he was, saying, it's, God is everything. Go ahead, Les. Thanks, Les. One of my favorite words is ineffable. And I really just came across that word, not real long ago, a few years ago, and it just really stuck with me. Ineffable means that which cannot be described in words. And I think that's what Les was saying here, and that it's like, wow, things that cannot be described in words. And it seems to be really true. There are so many things, I think, that we can't really, we can try our best, of course. We can put them in the words that we know the best, and of course we speak English. But you look at other languages, and there may be, and I've heard this expression often, you don't have a word for it in the English language. and of course, just trying to describe God, that would certainly fit that, wouldn't it? Let's go on to number 6. I'm hoping that we can get through this. Arthur Ford states, the soul slides easily from its casing without pain or visible sensation. One moment he is there, still wearing the painful garb of flesh, and the next he is in heavenly raiment. That is not as fanciful as it sounds, for this actually occurs if the transition has been prepared for. We awaken into a realm of pure beauty and song. The trees are real trees here, not the reflections for which which you in the flesh see. The flowers are pure thought, and therefore much more exquisite than anything in the form seen by physical man. The birds, animals, spirits, yes, the many mansions are perfection here, for they are thought forms. Let us assume then that we are tired of the old body and eager to get on with life in this great world. For a time we rest and enjoy reunion with old friends. Depending on the worth of our characters, we are troubled or at ease, happy or restless, just as on the earth plane. Little by little, as we adjust to the sudden alteration in soul covering, we realize that time is passing swiftly, that we would be on with our Father's business, if you will. That is, when our true character begins to assert itself, will we want to plunge into a round of festivities and pure pleasures, or will we want to develop our spiritual side? We welcome a newcomer with love and open arms. He is surprised at first unless he is prepared for this step through study and meditation. He hungers, and we produce food. It is a thought pattern, but as real to him as that which he once used to sustain his physical body. He thirsts, and we give him drink. Anybody ever thought about what it might be like to transition? I certainly have. I'm going to be going through that fairly soon with, a good relation of mine.
I think we have a choice. I think we have a choice whether we can make it easy or hard. And when we know that, I remember when my grandmother was near her passing in the hospital, Les asked her if she was afraid. And she said, no, I'm not afraid. We hadn't discussed a lot, and I didn't know a lot of her feelings. I knew some of her favorite poems and stuff like this. But I think we can choose, and that preparation can be 5 minutes or an hour or 2 weeks or 6 months or whatever it takes to understand that we are going through a change and to accept it and bless the opportunity, or to curse it and go somewhere else or experience something else.
Anybody ever been in a room with a person that's transitioning and they go, okay, don't you see that person, in the corner? And they start smiling or what? That is very interesting. But it's a very spiritual experience to be in the room with someone that is transitioning. And it really puts you in the now, that's for sure.
But you can watch and just hear people share or read books, whatever. The main thing is always love. Always.
That's the key that I've always gotten from NDEs too, at least most of them. There are a few that I've actually, people experience kind of a hell, but very, very few of them. Most of them come back and say it's about love. And what a great thing to think that we're actually going down the right path. Let's go ahead and move on. Number 7, What of those who die suddenly or not prepared? Arthur states suddenly he wants terribly to be at home, and he is instantly in his hometown watching strangers bending over his body. What are they doing? Giving him medicine, perhaps? But no, this is not a sick bed, but a morgue. Something must be terribly wrong. He rushes to his house and sees his wife wearing black. Voices are muted as people come and go. Some dire mistake has been made because they seem to be mourning him. This so puzzles him that he falls into a deep stupor. When he finally rouses, the people have gone, all but one man who says, "Son, time now for us to start school." And he goes, "School? I finished school a long time ago, old man, and you must surely have done the same." "A different kind of school, my lad," the old man stresses. "This is the real school where we are taught how to remember, how to forget, and what to know without learning." Arthur stated that this book was to be the story of the actual Passover of various types of souls from the physical life to the spirit. Those who want mansions will find them ready, but those who want food for spirit will find it in abundance. For that is what this is all about, material versus spiritual, and it's up to each soul to choose which way he will go. I thought that was interesting, and he did say in the book several times, talking about a school of wisdom, and I think for people in different various stages would actually go to a school and to actually learn and to help them out to see how they might want to appear in their, quote, next life, or, how they would actually move forward in that realm, whatever. So it's all just a fascinating thing to think about. Not trying to say that there are any answers here. It's just really, this is just about helping us find, I think. To me, it was helped me find some peace with some of the good things I think about that might happen afterwards, assuming that we do exist the way we think we are going to. Any questions? Any thoughts? Okay, what happens after death? Number 8. Arthur Ford, let's talk about the kind of place one will find here if he has never given a thought to the hereafter, neither believer nor non-believer, just indifferent, and too busy to give it a thought in the busyness of earth life. He finds himself in what appears to be the same place he left, only more so. By that I mean everything is more vividly colored here, and the sky is without clouds, but other than that, he thinks that he's still living and ready to go about his regular appointments. Let me tell you about a station here in which some people rest for a very, very long time until something at last awakens them to the potential of growth. The Catholics would call it purgatory, but the difference is that they think we all go there for a time, whereas this is not true. It is a state of nebulism in which the soul hovers halfway between earth phase and this phase. It is not necessarily peopled with bad spirits, but mostly with those who made no preparation or did not want to go on living and have immortality. So they sleep or move about in despondency and make no positive effort to advance, to learn, to recover from the shock of giving up the bodies which they had taken for granted and thought contained all the permanence there was. When they realize they're holding themselves back, comes the true awakening, and at the moment there are many happy souls ready to help guide the newcomer over the barriers. In more normal cases, souls are first greeted by relatives, close friends, or old classmates, so that they at once feel the tensions created by a worn-out body slipping away and youth returning. For we here are all in our prime years, no matter what age we are crossed over. Now think about it. We got a couple things here in this little bit. Purgatory for one, and the other one is how do you show up if we're in this so-called heaven? They say in the prime of your life. What was that for you? 20? I don't know. Whatever. It's an interesting concept, and as Les was talking about earlier, how do we know that we're going to be that, quote, individual? Do we just meld right into to that energy itself? Any thoughts on that? Yes? Okay. 28 to 30, now I know. I got cancer when I was 30. I hope I don't come back at that stage. Because of time, I'm going to kind of wrap this up a little bit quickly. Number 9, there is no evil except that which we create, for I have seen no signs of a devil on this side of the veil. We are our own devils with our thoughts and subsequent deeds. The devil is the force of evil which has been gathering in the earth since man first trod in physical form. It is the residue of that which is evil, and because man seems not to become more Christ-like, this evil gathers force as each generation leaves its own stamp of evil, doing on the force that we think of as a devil. Man, not God, created Satan, and he lives not as a wicked soul, but as the personification of all evil, fed by every evil thought and activity. If Satan is to be destroyed, it will be done through man's awakening to the fact that even thoughts are deeds, and that the devil shrinks in size each time we replace an ugly thought or action with loving kindness. We are here, and that is all there is to time. Having grasped this truth, we are ready to understand why it is that there is no such thing as waste. Nothing dies. Let me emphasize it strongly. Nothing dies. There is no such thing as death. Kind of some good things there, and of course, here at Unity, we really don't believe in the devil or hell, and yet at the same time, I've been through parts of my life where I feel like as I said, I've kind of been in that hell, but I always felt like it was the ego that was creating that. Any thoughts on that? I mean, I'm kind of putting myself out there by giving you what I think of as the devil. I think we do create that. That's a good point. That's really a good point. And we all have that capacity to be pretty mean at times, don't we? And then we wake up and we realize that wasn't exactly in our best interest or anybody's best interest. I think of that as being, quote, the devil, if you want, that we turn away from what we know of as being good, as being godlike. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. We have 4 minutes left. Proper preparation. Arthur Ford was determined to get across the idea that those who have died are not floating around somewhere in space. They are here just as much as we are here, but in a different dimension. It is all one universe, and we aren't anywhere but here where you are, although we do have a different modus vivendi. We don't sleep in your beds or sit in your chairs, but we do carry on our daily activities in the midst of you who are toting around the body of flesh. We intermingle and sometimes converse, but try not to interfere except sometimes to save a life or steer a person who is lost or unaware of his surroundings. We coexist with the physical beings and they with us, but the essential difference is that they are unaware of us while we are totally conscious of them, and we strongly pick up the thoughts of physical beings. Ford said that those who train themselves to recall the spirit life while in the flesh are better equipped to receive inspiration from the other side. And I do have an interesting story, and I think Dee may have been there at the time, but and Tom probably, and maybe Sue. Many of you were friends with Cheryl Willis, right? Cheryl was a big part of our church for many years, and she was an absolutely wonderful soul. We've named the meditation garden after Cheryl Willis. There's a sign that's hanging up in the meditation garden. She passed unexpectedly of an enlarged heart. She didn't know she had it, and we found out too late. And it was a terrible shock to all of us. And so we had her celebration of life right afterwards, and her husband obviously was there in the front row. Well, when Cheryl was living, she hated this pair of shoes that her husband wore. She literally hated these shoes. Now, I'm going to tell you, when the funeral was over, or not the funeral, the celebration of life was over, and we were walking out, so many people said, "What's all this?" I mean, it was just pieces of rubber, all over the church. His shoes were literally disintegrating in front of our eyes. And I kid you not, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Has anybody, Dee, do you remember that? It was unreal. I know, because I swept it up and vacuumed it up afterwards. one shoe totally disintegrated, and we were laughing about that, and he was telling us a story about Cheryl hating those shoes, and here he was going to the funeral in those shoes that she hated, and she was telling him, no way you're going to be here in those shoes. And as soon as the one shoe disintegrated, the other one disintegrated. Both of them disintegrated. I saw it with my own eyes. It was the most weird thing one of the most weird things I've ever seen. Let's go on. Ford stated, those who are attuned through meditation to the real life that always exists, permanence instead of temporal, are often the ones deemed geniuses in the physical realm. They are able to tap the source of universal wisdom. Why then would not all earthly beings spend time in meditation? Because they have not been sufficiently awakened to this source of tremendous knowledge and wisdom, which is theirs for the tapping. Now we at Unity, we strive for this knowledge and that permanent truth, don't we? When we go into meditation, we are as near to God as we mere souls are likely to be for a long time yet. This is where we meet our God within ourselves, and as we learn on this side, it is that within this which makes it possible to assess our past errors and to prepare either to advance to a higher state or return for another go-round in physical form. Thus, the more you learn about meditation while in physical form, the more quickly you will be able to advance here, which he's talking about heaven. Now for prayer, which is totally different from meditation, prayer is an active, not a passive attempt to touch the heart of God. Prepare yourself for this effort by putting from your thoughts all base and ulterior motives so that you approach the Creator with clean hands. Think good, and God is there as you pray for his blessings on those in your thoughts. Seek also to be included in God's boundless whole. Ask for blessings as if you took it for granted that they would be bestowed, for that is the part which means faith.